Howdy, folks. I'm a quirky quillfish quietly questioning quixotic questing quails.
I'm Amber.
And here are more questing quails for us to question. Sounds like an adventure.
We need our quest room for this.
Yes. Bring back the quest room for the quails. Alright, folks, our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Ruining Steve Irwin for My Friend's Daughter? I'm a 38-year-old female, and I got to visit my friend recently and spent the night. One of her daughters, a 13-year-old female, spent a couple of hours watching old episodes of The Crocodile Hunter on TV. My friend said that her daughter has been pretty interested in animals and wildlife and nature, so they got her some of those to watch. Since she remembers enjoying those shows as a kid, and modern versions of them don't seem as good. I thought this was great, since I actually grew up near Birwa, Australia, where the Australian Zoo is, and we went a lot, even into my young adulthood before moving to the US for work. I got to see Steve a couple of times, and later Bindi when she got older, at a couple of talks, small group settings. My friend said, wow, you should totally tell my daughter about that. So, a while later, I went to the living room where the daughter was watching the shows, and I told her that I got to see Steve a couple of times before he died, and later Bindi. She got excited and started asking me lots of questions. I told her that he seemed like a great guy, and as much as I could remember about the animals. Then I told her about the details about the first talk and small group that I saw him at, where he warned us that he had to help cover for a keeper who called in sick and cleaned out a primate house right before this talk and hadn't showered yet. So we really might not want the front row seat. I didn't listen and I got one anyways, and oof, I regretted it. I'm sure it was a great talk and a treasured memory looking back, but at the time, all I could think about was how not to gag. This horrified my friend's daughter more than I thought, as she went, ew, he smelled bad? I was sort of taken aback and I said, well, what do you think being around animals all day, every day? That day was worse than others, I'm sure, but come to think of it, he stunk pretty bad the other times that I got close enough to smell him too. So did Bindi, for that matter. My friend's daughter is apparently very into spas and perfumes and smelling nice. And this has put a big damper on her thoughts of working with wildlife and even her enthusiasm for seeing it through a screen. My friend called me the next day and said, of all the things to share with her, why did you really have to bring up how Steve Irwin smelled like a monkey when you went to meet him and distracted you from the talk? She said that seemed like an inappropriate thing to bring up to a young girl and also a disrespectful thing to bring up to Steve Irwin's memory. But I don't think that it was inappropriate to bring up. I think that it was a realistic part of the work that Steve did, and was certainly something that stuck in my memory. If anything, it made me respect the work he did even more. Am I the jerk? Alright, folks, what do you think? Jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. I mean, when I first read the title, I was expecting something horrible, but like, all you did was say, oh yeah, he worked with animals and smelled like it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's important for kids to understand what jobs entail. Like, you don't want to have this kid all excited to go work with animals and then realize when she gets there that they smell.
Well, and sometimes people don't understand going into jobs, all the different nitty-gritty details of them. And so I can understand someone being a little naive towards some of the finer points of that. And maybe that would detract her at that point in time, but maybe it wouldn't. I mean, sometimes people who pursue things for a long time, they're willing to overlook certain things, and also their opinions change, right? It doesn't mean that she has to smell like an animal all the time, right? But if you're going to be around animals, then yeah, I mean, it's not an unrealistic part of it, right?
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with OP did. She was just saying what she thought was like a funny memory type of thing, and she didn't realize that the daughter would react so adversely to it.
Yeah, I think this was more or less OP was just trying to share a fun memory and she didn't react well to it, and that isn't necessarily OP's fault. The mom is the one who told OP to share their memories, so.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's important not to like sugarcoat things too much. Like, I know that kids can react to things and then maybe when you get older it's not as big a deal, but it's also not hurtful to know that in the moment. If she's really invested in spelling nice all the time, this is probably not the career path for her.
She doesn't really know what she wants to do for her career path anyways, so she gave her honest opinion about what the job was like for Steve. So let me know what you folks think. Anyhow, take care and good luck. And name Sarah too hard for me. Not the jerk. She's 13 years old, for crying out loud. This isn't Santa Claus. Her world isn't going to end now that she knows that animals can smell because they have noses. A410821 says, I think that there was an Am I the Jerk recently where a lady had an old friend get her job working with animals and she hated smelling like animals all the time. Apparently, some of the stench never goes away. It gets in your clothes, your hair, and eventually your car. The Am I the Jerk was for possibly quitting the dream job that her friend had helped her to get. And I mean, that kind of adds to Amber's point there, where she's like, well, you don't want to get so far into a career only to realize that you hate it.
Yeah, well, and I was just worried, like, what if the girl, like, went to school for, like, wildlife rehabilitation or, like, zoo work or something and got all invested in it, but never did the hands-on and then was confronted with the, oh.
Yeah. Always Monochrome Blue says, not the jerk, it wasn't an appropriate thing to say that a zookeeper smelled. And it's the reality of the job. She's 13 and she should be able to handle knowing that. If she's put off by knowing that animals stink, then she shouldn't be working with the wildlife anyways. And Oof Elm says, not the jerk, sounds like she needed a dose of reality. Also, ugh, ape stench. It's by far not the worst smell that I've encountered working with animals, but it might somehow be my least favorite. At least if you reek of big cat or otter or penguin, people will go, ugh, yep, that's zookeeper alright, gasp, gag. But after a long day in the ape house, you might not stink as bad, but it's the stinking, uncanny valley smells where it's not entirely beyond the realm of possibility that it's just super bad human BO. But like, the worst ever though, and funkier than you'd hope any human has the capability of producing. And yet, you know that any stranger will have at least some thought in the back of their head of, did this person just never shower in the past decade? That's pretty awful. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Not Telling My Brother, My Sister-in-Law's Words After a Small Surgery? I'm a 24-year-old female, and I have a brother, Cole, a 28-year-old male, and he has a wife, Pam, a 31-year-old female, and a best friend, Rick, a 28-year-old male, since kindergarten. As long as I can remember, Rick has always been around, and my family's joke that he and Cole are platonic soulmates. He's invited to every single family gathering, every holiday, and sometimes just stays over without Cole there. Our family has welcomed sister-in-law into the family, and Rick, but she's a bit socially awkward and doesn't really fit in with our family. The only person that she really gets along with is our mom, and that's because she gets along with older ladies since she's practically one. She's a vanilla wife, basically. That's a little rude.
Mm-hmm.
Rick's going through chemotherapy. Cole has been by his side the entire time, and I don't think the sister-in-law hated the idea, but it's hard to know what she thinks. The place that Rick gets chemo is about an hour away from Cole and sister-in-law's place. When Cole was at the hospital with Rick, he got the news that sister-in-law had a minor car accident and asked me to check on her since I live close to the ER that she was taken to while he got ready to leave. I got there and sister-in-law was recovering from a small surgery and anesthesia. She only had a few staples in her scalp and a broken arm. The doctor said that she was very lucky to be so unharmed. Sister-in-law saw me and waved me over. She said, "Tell your bro I want to be loved. I want a divorce," and stuff about getting a gold medal in her own life. I didn't really think a lot about it since it was obvious that she was still feeling the anesthesia. I called my bro and I told him that sister-in-law was fine and it was a minor surgery and that the doctor said that she was lucky. He was relieved and came to the hospital an hour or so later. I thought that everything was fine until Cole called me in the day afterwards, screaming his head off that sister-in-law wanted to separate and I hadn't told him. Then my mom called and said sister-in-law's side of the family was telling our side of the family that they were separating. She bit my head off for not telling anybody what sister-in-law said. She also yelled at my brother for being with Rick instead of sister-in-law, even though she was there too. Either of them could have gone. I still think that there was no point of telling them since it was clear sister-in-law was feeling the anesthesia. Am I the jerk? Edit. I don't know the details, but basically it boiled down to Cole putting his family and friends before her every time. Honestly, I'm not sure what she's talking about since Cole has always been a thoughtful, generous guy, and she said that's why she fell in love with him. I think that it's so sad that something that your partner loves for you is now why they hate you. She never brought up the issue either. Cole's devastated and begged her not to leave. Edit to edit, the reason that Cole was late was because Rick wasn't done with chemo and another friend was going through a severe mental health thing, so my brother had to calm her down and he couldn't do that in the car, so he was delayed in getting to the hospital. It's sad, but like a triage, sister-in-law wasn't where Cole was needed the most at the time because her injuries were pretty minor. Alright folks, what do you think, jerk or not the jerk?
Yeah, OP, your entire post is just like dripping with disdain, and like I can 100% see why she wants out of this relationship. It sounds like her husband, she's been like a last priority to her husband for a very long time, and this was just the icing on the cake. And I know the doctor's like, oh yeah, she's lucky she wasn't hurt any worse, but she still needed surgery. She still broke her arm. She still got staples in her scalp. Like, none of that is fun. And to find out that your husband is not going to be there for you because he's dealing with other people's problems is going to be a difficult pill to swallow.
Yeah, if she's really feels like she's being put second every single time, then that's not really a healthy way to have a relationship. It also sounds like she's having a hard time communicating that as well. So I think that this relationship needed couples counseling a long time ago, and that she and he needed to communicate more effectively, because it just really sounds like they weren't talking to each other. But the OP here, I think that they do sound like they're very condescending of her.
Yeah, like, oh, she's a vanilla wife, as if there's something bad with being introverted and being able to hold a conversation with the mom. Like,
yeah, and maybe she feels alienated from the rest of the family, and it's really hard to say what her feelings are because OP doesn't really do a very good job at depicting that.
Well, and if OP's feelings reflect the rest of the family, then it's very clear that they much prefer Rick to her, and she probably felt like a third wheel in her own marriage at any family event.
Yeah. This was likely just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Mm-hmm.
There were plenty of other opportunities where I'm sure she was put second or third, and this was just one more time.
Were there any other people who could have handled any of the other things that the brother was doing? Was there someone else who could have come and sat with Cole for the rest of his chemo treatment? Was there someone else who could have handled the friend's mental health crisis? Like, if he's shouldering like all the burdens for all his friends, that's not a healthy thing either.
No.
And it doesn't make for a good, sustainable partner.
No.
Just from this one instance, I'm getting this feeling that he probably is, spending all his mental headspace doing things for his friends.
Yeah. Well, he also might be a person who everyone kind of walks all over and expects them to do these things, and he might be a yes man type where he can't say no to anybody, and he needs to go do this and he has to go do that because that's what everyone asks him to do, and that can be really damaging to a relationship too.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel bad for the sister-in-law here, but again, like OP, you probably should have told your brother.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing, like, even if someone's saying something just because when they came off of anesthesia, that doesn't mean it doesn't also reflect deeper things they're thinking.
This is a hard, traumatic time for her. She was probably scared. She was probably hoping that her husband would be there by her side, and when he wasn't, she was really upset. And then you didn't even have the courtesy to tell him that she's dealing with some really traumatic emotions right now and really hard things.
Yeah, well, it also sounds like OP minimized everything to the brother. It's like, oh yeah, no, she's fine. It's totally minor. And like, I don't know, OP's dismissiveness throughout this whole thing really bothers me. It sounds like OP feels like she deserves to be sidelined. Like, oh yeah, well, brother had more important things to do. He couldn't worry about his wife who was in a car accident because, she's alive, so it's fine.
Yeah. So let me know what you folks think. Anyhow, take care and good luck. And Stormy always says, that's not only. Staples in her head is not minor. You're the jerk for diminishing her injuries. And Dustin Wayner says, But Rick had chemo and a female friend who was having a mental health crisis. Why should wife, who only had a broken arm and staples in her head after a car accident, expect him to be there? And okay, outcome 6213 says, he got there when he got there. I mean, geez, she got the marriage certificate. What more does she want? An attentive and present husband who puts her first? It's clearly sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
And the Owl Syndicate says, tell your bro I want to be loved, I want a divorce. And stuff about getting a gold medal in her own life. Info. Why can't you accept that your brother is as terrible as a spouse, and despite the fact that you dislike your sister-in-law, that she does indeed deserve to come first with her husband? Enough with the excuses. His bestie chemo and friends mental health crisis. What's next? Was there a kitten in a tree? From your sister-in-law's perspective, which means more than yours when it comes to their marriage and your brother's performance as a husband. Her husband isn't worth the remaining marriage to her since his caring nature is spent on everyone else before her. We all deserve to come first with our significant others. To be fair, not the jerk for not saying anything. That's a mess that you should stay out of, and I mean way out of it. I don't know, I still think giving him a heads up would have probably been a good idea.
Yeah, well, especially like even if she thinks that maybe sister-in-law is just considering this, letting him know that there's something up with their marriage.
All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got a beverage of choice right here. And Amber, she's got a joke and she's looking very smug about it. She's got the smuggest joke look ever.
What might you say about a wooden dog?
You know what I say about wooden dogs? I say they're pretty rough. Because they're unsanded.
I mean, that's good. That's good. You could also say its bark is worse than its bite.
Yeah. Are you pulling wooden dogs off of wooden trees or something like that? Do they grow on wooden trees, Amber? Do they have like the bark still on them?
Yes, I'm assuming so. You cut a dog shape out of a tree, but you left the bark on, so.
Yeah. I would say that that's a lie. Nobody makes bark-covered dog trees, Amber. It would be like a dogwood tree or something like that, which does not exist. And I have licorice spice.
You glue on some bark for texture, like that's the fur texture.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Happy Tuesday, spelt T-W-O. Amber, guess what?
What?
We have a live stream on Friday.
Yes, I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, well, I beat you to
did.
it.
You beat me to it.
I also beat your joke with a funnier joke.
Yeah, you probably did.
I'm just kidding. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance. And please have it in the form of a likable TV character who might be ruined.
I've never actually seen The Crocodile Hunter, so I'm just gonna make something up. And remember, friends, animals are wonderful creatures, but they smell.
That's a moral. Remember, folks, animals smell. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye!